Century Next Bank is proud to sponsor Digital Weather Desk with local meteorologist Jared Floyd.
The Digital Weather Desk is your local source for the latest weather information to help keep you and your family safe and to plan your week. You can follow us on our social media platforms, download our app, and you can also find us at digitalweatherdesk.com. The Digital Weather Desk,
Powered by Century Next Bank.
Hey folks, thanks for taking time out of the day to join the Digital Weather Desk, powered by Century Next Bank. I'm Jared Floyd. It is Monday. It is an off day in terms of work for some folks, so everybody's scheduled a little bit kind of off kilter, if you will, or at least some, as we set the stage for a pretty active week. And we jump into the first things first. There's a lot of scenarios that are unfolding with the potential for winter weather this weekend. We'll talk about all of that in just a minute. I think the other headline that usually gets buried, and it gets buried a lot when we talk about the potential for wintry precipitation, is the cold. That will be the most impactful. Well, I say it will be the most. It will be the most widespread, most impactful thing that we will deal with across the region. So make sure that you are prepared to stay warm safely this upcoming weekend. The winter weather potential is also obviously a part of that. We'll jump into that in just a minute, and we'll kind of go chronologically through the next 7 days or so. Look at the visible satellite. Not a whole lot happening in our area. We are wiggling a cold front through the region as we speak, and that will bring temperatures kind of very similar to what we've ran into today through the afternoon hours tomorrow. Kind of keeps us from warming up for another day or so. The radar made possible by Brown's Roofing. Schedule your free roof inspection at brownsroofingla.com. Again, if you're having roof issues, now's the time to probably get those things taken care of before the bad weather sets in across the region. And that does include rain as early as Wednesday. Not a whole lot happening in our area precipitation-wise in the short term, but obviously that changes Wednesday and then beyond that really through the rest of the week. Temperatures vary depending on location. 55 in Monroe and Shreveport, 44 in Little Rock, but 26 in Fayetteville. So there is some colder air pulled up to our northwest. Most of us are generally in the low to mid 50s and kind of outperforming and outrunning where we expected temperatures to land this afternoon. I had to tweak afternoon highs today. I had El Dorado at 53. They're already at 54. I had Monroe at 56 or 55. I have Natchez at 58. They're at 54. So again, some spots are already outperforming their high temperatures for the day. And I just built those numbers like 30 minutes ago, based on the numbers where they were at the time. And temperatures just continue to kind of outrun things. Ernest, good afternoon to you as well. Dew point's quite dry for the time being, but as I mentioned, winds will generally be out of the north and northwest as we go through the nighttime hours. A weak cold front working through the region, and those winds could pick up a little bit late this afternoon. Futurecast made possible by Bayou Power Sports, I-20 Frontage Road in Monroe. Just a heads up, just throwing this out there as we entertain this winter weather potential. Bayou Power Sports and 3B Hardware, both stock portable generators. Just in case that's in the back of your mind as a possibility, I want to throw that out there that a lot of our local business partners have you covered in that regard. Check Futurecast. It shows the northerly and northeasterly winds really pulling in behind today's cold front. Tomorrow should be pretty quiet as well, but the winds will swing back around to the south leading into the latter part of the day, and that leads to the moisture return and the showers that blanket the area through much of the day on Wednesday. I will say that the rain totals look to maybe be a little bit higher in the southern parishes and counties, a little higher than initially thought, but expect the rain to start as early as sunrise Wednesday, continuing through a good chunk of the day. Not really expecting much in the way of thunderstorms, maybe the occasional rumble of thunder, but then the cold front makes its way through the region during the afternoon. Can't really completely rule out the rain even through the daytime hours on Thursday. I think most of the area will stay cloudy and dry Thursday. And then you can already start to see, as this particular computer model only goes about 90, 96 hours in advance, and as this model continues to kind of wrap up on the last few frames of the animation, you can see those stronger, bolder northeasterly winds resembling the Arctic air that could be surging into the region as we head toward the daytime hours on Friday. So let's kind of tie a bow on the middle parts of the week. Rain totals generally across our area will probably be in the half-inch to full-inch range. much needed considering the drought conditions across the area. We need the rainfall. So that's good news. This is just a computer model output on potential rain totals. This is the official Weather Prediction Center forecast for rain totals. And it has backed off on a lot of those totals. It really had a lot of spots up 3/4 to an inch of rainfall. But of course, obviously painting with a broad brush in that regard. And good afternoon to you. So here's a look at as we pivot toward the second half of this week, and I showed this map this morning. So first off, before we get into the details of what all is going on here, what are we looking at? First off, the wind lines, those are in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. So we're looking at the mid-levels. The coloring on the map, that is precipitable water, basically the total amount of moisture in the column of air directly above us at any given time. What is this white line that you see kind of squiggling all through? That is the surface freezing line. So we are looking at moisture, we're looking at winds, we're looking at surface temperatures, we're looking at a lot of different stuff in different levels of the atmosphere. So just follow with me for a second. As we put this into motion over the next few days, you can see our next disturbance that will move into the area. Again, there's a lot going on here, but you can see this little dip right here in the mid-level winds, stirring up this subtropical moisture and scouring out the rain that we expect to deal with on Wednesday. And you can see that the plume of moisture associated with the rain potential as we go through the middle parts of the week. Beyond that, Thursday, again, we're kind of in flux, in between systems, if you will. First boundary's already passed through. We're awaiting the next one on Friday. And that front looks to move through during the day on Friday. Note, again, that the freezing line is already kind of trying to wiggle into our area Friday afternoon. Now, this is based off the 12Z GFS, which is extremely aggressive with bringing the cold air, and is probably too aggressive with bringing the cold air in. But meanwhile, through the day on Friday, you can already see the subtropical winds funneling in moisture thanks to this broad upper low, which is just going to, again, serve as the focal point, the funnel, to continue to bring subtropical moisture up and over this cold air. So we're at the surface, it's cold. We're running moisture up and over the surface and up over this boundary, and that's going to provide some type of precipitation, more than likely. Again, you look at the envelope of moisture, even starting Friday across the region, fairly healthy amounts of moisture. Now let's roll through the day on Saturday. Again, continuing with this upper low just stalled out, just continuing to be the conveyor belt running moisture up and over the area. And I know you're probably thinking, well, the freezing line's way south of us. This has got to be all snow, right? That is not the case. Definitely not the case. We'll get to all of that in just a minute. But again, through the day on Saturday, still overrunning a lot of moisture until late Saturday, early Sunday. The cold, dense, dry Arctic air is just too much for all of this moisture. Our upper low starts to open up. It either stays stalled or it either opens up, one or the other. But regardless, the cold, dry air brings it into the precipitation. Temperatures really bottom out going into the early parts of next week. We'll get to that in a minute as well. And then eventually, this upper low will open up and then kick eastward. Now, by that point, it will pull in a lot of warm, humid air along with it, so I don't think we're going to see a round 1, round 2 winter weather potential. I think we're going to see a round 1 and then probably some rain to follow, warming us up early to middle parts of next week. That's how things shape up for now. So let's look at some other model data output. This is the Futurecast. This is the Barron 15K, so it's a lower resolution model, but goes farther out in time. So it kind of picks up where that initial Futurecast, when we were looking at the Wednesday rainfall, it picks up where that one leaves off. And note, by midday on Friday, it starts to bring a lot of mixed precipitation to the region as that colder air at the surface continues to nudge in. And then this is nuts. This is just bonkers in all terms. Because of the widespread precipitation potential that this particular computer model is painting out. But also, I think the more bonkers thing is the temperatures that it's throwing out. It has us in the single digits by Saturday afternoon. Single-digit temperatures. Temperatures. Not wind chills, not apparent temperatures, actual air temperatures. So you can kind of see where we look at this computer model and go, that's a little extreme. That's a little much. Even you guys can look at that and go, that's That's probably not right. So you can kind of see where we meet with some skepticism some of this model output. And again, that's where you take this information, what's being thrown out by these computer models, which is just raw data, and it takes a meteorologist to take all that information and then build a forecast out of it. So that's just one computer model's take on things. Here's the GFS, which I've been showing you. Everything else that I was showing you in terms of the upper levels of the atmosphere is based off the 12Z GFS. Again, by Friday afternoon, it starts trying to drop areas below freezing across our area. Precip becomes widespread. Now, here's the other thing that is a caveat and kind of a question in the forecast, for me at least. If the temperatures are going to get that cold through the day on Saturday, I cannot stress enough, cold air is dry air. So some computer models suggest that the air just gets so cold through the day on Saturday that it really kind of shunts all of the moisture off to the south and kind of pushes it off to the south. So there is that question. Amber just getting on. So are we thinking ice cream or snow? I would assume snow for El Dorado. Ice cream would be cool. Cloudy with a chance of meatballs. We're kind of just now getting into that. And Amber, to be honest with you, I don't really have an answer for you in terms of types of precipitation yet, because depending on what model data you want to look at, the GFS has been throwing a lot of sleet our direction. It does have some freezing rain. It has some snow. Has a lot of sleet. The European model, which I'm just getting that data in, and you think this data is crazy. The European operational data, which I haven't even been able to see the ensemble members yet, but the European data is really bonkers. And again, just in full disclosure, what am I talking about bonkers? The European data has literally has 2.25 inches of ice in Texarkana. That would be like the most apocalyptic ice storm that this area has ever seen. Now, do we believe that? No. Here's why. If we were to have those types of rain totals, it doesn't all translate to ice. The computer models think that way. Okay, it's raining, it's below freezing, this is all going to turn to ice. That's not the case. Flashback 5 years ago when we had the big ice storm back in 2021. Nick Mikulus and I were just talking about this yesterday. About the southern parishes, how it was 30 degrees, 31 degrees, and pouring down rain in Faraday and Vidalia and a lot of the southern parishes during that ice storm. But the ice eventually, because it was raining so hard, it all ran off. It didn't give the water an opportunity to freeze because temperatures weren't cold enough for it to just freeze on contact. It was 30, 31, so a lot of that water just runs off and it doesn't freeze. So it does lead to a lot of question marks as to how much. There's so many questions that we don't have answers to, but obviously it's all stuff we're watching. So let's take a look at the precipitation types. And again, I know this is elementary for some, but for a lot of folks, if you're new to this area, or if, again, you're not a meteorologist, you don't use this stuff, it's not on Final Jeopardy every day, let's go through it. Obviously, rain's easy. Everything starts as snow in this time of year in the upper levels of the atmosphere. It falls into a warm layer above freezing as it's moving toward the ground, and it melts to rain. Freezing rain. Starts as snow, melts on the way down, hits something at the surface that is below freezing. A bridge, an overpass, a power line, a tree branch, anything at the surface that's below freezing, and it freezes as ice glaze on contact. That is freezing rain. Sleet starts as snow, melts into rain, but then continues to fall, and close to ground level, there's another layer of sub-freezing air, and so that water refreezes into a little ice pellet. Sleet is also just all known as ice pellets. When I abbreviate it in the forecast to myself, I write IP, because in the meteorology world, it's just ice pellets is what we call them. So sleet, ice pellets, same thing. Snow, it just stays frozen all the way down. Sometimes those flakes can partially melt. especially if it's snowing while you're above freezing. And I know a lot of folks always ask, well, if it stays frozen, how do we get snow at 36, 37, 38 degrees sometimes? Well, sometimes there's a warm layer right at the ground level, but it's just too shallow, and the snowflake doesn't have enough time to melt, so it just falls and stays frozen, and then it melts on contact. But every now and then you get those snowflakes that will melt a little bit on the way down, and then they collide with another snowflake, and they turn into these big globby snowflakes, chunky snow. I don't think we're looking at a lot of snowfall in this area. If the model data continues to pan out the way it sits right now, we're looking at ice, not necessarily looking at a lot of snow. Here's where winter weather forecasts are always different, but here's where we are in the forecast process. We're still in that 6 to 8 day. Now we're getting kind of climbing out of the 6 to 8 day time frame, and we're getting into that 4 to 5 day time frame. So we'll get to that in a minute. But usually in about the 6 to 8 day time frame, which is especially what we were doing over the weekend. If you saw my post from Sunday, and I kind of mentioned what we would be looking at, even going back to Saturday when I said the end of the month could get weird, that we were paying attention and observing patterns for a potential system. Now we're kind of getting into this point. We're looking for the consistency in the model data. We're looking for frequency we want the models to continue to throw out the same solutions over and over and over, and we want the ensemble members of those models to continue to throw out the same solutions over and over. Consistency is key in building confidence in the forecast. And also, and if you followed yesterday, and really anytime we have winter weather, even including this morning, is I look at a lot of things and I go, let's make it make sense. Let's make it make sense in all levels of the atmosphere. Could this actually happen? And we can answer that question right now. Yeah, this is a system in a general setup that makes sense and that I think could generally happen in our area. So again, confidence is continuing to increase. Eventually, in the next couple of days, once we get into that 2 to 3 day time frame, we're talking, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Especially Thursday. We get to that 2 to 3 day time frame. We get a general idea of the precipitation type, the timing of it, the location, and how much we should expect. That's when the rubber meets the road and you actually have to put together a forecast. Whether you like the forecast or not, you got to put some pen to paper and you got to give numbers for you folks to at home rely on and plan on. Whether that forecast is right, wrong, good, bad, or ugly, you got to throw it out there. And then you get to what we almost call the now casting. It's basically refining that forecast as we look at the specifics of the exact timing and location of the overall threat and the overall threat impacts in our region. That's when we start to ask you to act a little bit more, which in winter weather, to be honest with you, the call to action is usually don't act. It's just stay home. So that's where we are over the next couple of days and into the next week. Again, I don't want folks to lose sight of the fact that the extreme cold on the back end of this could be the bigger weather conversation. We could be looking at the possibility of single digits. It's not out of the realm of possibilities. I think most of us will see teens and 20s, but it's not. Again, this looks to be, if it pans out the way it sits right now, it isn't looking to be a winter weather episode. It points toward winter storm scenario. So again, if we continue to trend down this path, if we continue to go down this road, we're not looking at, this could be disruptive. It could be impactful. Could. Keyword is could. Mid-50s for highs today, a few clouds. Winds will stay out of the north-northeast 5 to 10. Lows tonight back below freezing. A lot of us will spend a lot of time below freezing tonight. Winds will be light out of the northeast. As I mentioned, 7-day forecast made possible by 3B Hardware. Again, at that time of year and you were thinking about making the investment in a portable generator, probably not a bad time to think about that. And again, our friends at 3B Hardware and at Bayou Power Sports get you covered there. Go see Matt Bridges over at 3B or Mike Larry over at Bayou Power Sports. They'll get you squared away. Again, if you so choose to need something like that to prepare for what could be a winter weather scenario, and as like I said, could be pointing toward a winter storm scenario this weekend. Mid-50s for highs Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Upper 50s Thursday. Friday, I'm not overly confident in the temperatures. I have us at 51, morning low of 45, but I would expect temperatures to fall pretty quickly Friday afternoon, and there's a good chance that Friday's temperatures are way off. If we also continue on this general trend, I would think that having to highlight Saturday red as a pay attention to the weather day will probably be something that we have to keep in mind as we head through the next 5 to 7 days. Questions, comments, concerns. We've got a lot of folks that have hopped on, and I know that we're throwing I threw a lot of information at you. Ernest, Ann, Jane, David, Amber, Cheryl, Georgia, Janie, Carolyn, Susan, Connie, David, Kim, Rhonda, Belinda, and Christina. Thank you all so much for joining. If you do have some quick questions before we wrap things up, I could try to answer at least a couple of them. But Monday morning, Jennifer, that's a legit question because I've already had somebody asking me about flights and stuff like that. Monday morning is going to be a tough call because it all just depends on how much precip we have on the ground. If you go back in 2021, remember when we had that big weather episode, the prolonged winter storm? And I don't want to use that as an analog or because every winter system is different. But remember, that was a problem because we got the precip on the ground. Well, actually, we had multiple rounds, which also doesn't help matters much. But you got the precip on the ground. We never got back above freezing. That could be a concern over the weekend that could lead to some lingering road concerns Monday. Again, we are getting way far ahead of ourselves talking about Monday road conditions for a winter system that we're not really sold in. And I know you know that, but I've got to cover my own backside by saying that. Amy asks, what are your thoughts on power outages in South Arkansas, trying to decide if we need to drive 6 hours to take care of the home situation? It's a little too early to really show too much concern about power outages or about the potential for power outages because it genuinely depends on precip type. Obviously, if we have a cold rain, we're fine. If it's snow, power outages can become an issue. And yes, snow is still on the table. I think it's unlikely. I think it's very unlikely for northern Louisiana and western Mississippi. I think it's unlikely in southern Arkansas, but still possible. Freezing rain would be a really, really, really bad thing. We do not want a widespread freezing rain event across the area because then you're talking ice storm territory, and you're talking about significant infrastructure disruption and all that kind of stuff. So, Amy, to answer your question in short, let's kind of get a better idea, hopefully in the next day or two, what type of precipitation. Let's confirm what we're dealing with first, and then we can kind of get into that as we get a little bit closer. And yes, I have a blanket in my lap. It's cold in here. Mike's watching from Union. Thank you so much for joining in. Connie, hello. Kim, will I-20 towards Jackson, Mississippi be closed? I don't usually road closures. Again, we're assuming so much. We're assuming so much. And I know you guys know that, but I'm just, again, reiterating, we are assuming so much. But, I mean, I think road travel issues, if things were to pan out the way they are dealing with right now, I think a good chunk of the I-20 corridor would have some travel issues. This would be an impactful system. This would be a disruptive system if things continue to pan out the way it sits right now. The other big question on that note, too, going back to, I believe, was it Connie that asked about Monday morning, or excuse me, it was Jennifer that asked about Monday morning. It depends on how much time we get above freezing Saturday and Sunday. I have us at 34, 35 for Saturday, Sunday. I have a lot of skepticism as to whether we can get above freezing on Saturday and whether really on Sunday. Because, again, if you drop a lot of ice on the ground, ice, snow, or a combination, that's going to act as a refrigerator and kind of keep the air even colder. So ice and snowpack have a lot to do with that kind of stuff. Jane asked, will this be a dangerous situation? She was around in 73 when they had no. Well, I wasn't around in 73, but I can say that this is lining up to potentially be an impactful system. That's about as specific as I would like to be in that regard right now. Is I think this has the potential to be a disruptive system. I think this will be one of our, if not the best chance to see wintry precipitation this season. At least that's how it's shaping up right now. Morgan, do you think there will be multiple rounds of precipitation like there was in 2021? Right now, it does not appear that way. There is a scenario where in theory, I guess, couldn't completely rule it out. That would be where that upper low that we were talking about out to the southwest, if it opens up at the right time and moves through while that cold air is still very much in place, in theory, but as that upper low opens up, it's going to open up and pull warmer, more humid air in with it. And so, again, I see it as unlikely that this is a multiple round kind of scenario. I think this looks more like a prolonged precip scenario. We could start with precip Friday afternoon, Friday evening, and it probably be rain. And we may not get done with precipitation of some regard until Saturday evening, Saturday night. Ashley says she likes a snow day, not being stuck at home with ice. And yeah, and that's the other thing is sleet you can travel in. You don't necessarily want to, and it's not ideal, and especially when you get a lot of it, but you can at least get a certain degree of traction. Kind of the same with snow. Freezing rain, ain't nobody going nowhere. Ain't nobody going nowhere. And I'm using double negatives at this point. So that's where the forecast sits up on this Monday afternoon. Full disclosure for those that are joining and are going to check in on a frequent basis through the week, which is totally understandable. The midday streams will likely run late for most of this week. And the reason I say that is this. Usually I just kind of... With the computer model data, most of the data comes in, I can build the forecast and run. But when the forecast gets a little bit more meticulous and you need as much data as you possibly can run with, I'm going to wait for the European data to come in. I probably could have even waited a little bit longer and let the European ensemble data get in, and that would have even been more beneficial. But we can wait and put that into the afternoon forecast. So basically, long story short, These midday streams may be a little bit later than normal. Usually they're right around noon, but they may be a little bit closer to 1 over the next couple of days, simply because the forecast needs just a little bit more time. I'll join you later today with a look at the forecast. I'm going to try to get us something typed up, written up for those that would prefer to read than over watching a video. I'm going to try to get that done like here now. I do have a doctor's appointment. Everything's fine, just a normal checkup. Yeah, not everything's fine. My knee hurts. I have a knee problem. Nothing significant. I'm just a whiner. But we're going to get that squared away, so I'm going to go to the doctor this afternoon. Come back. We'll do the afternoon evening stream as well, and anything else that you need, I'll let you know. Time for the next update. Connie, I would think that the next live stream will probably be between 4 and 5 p.m. tonight. The kiddo's home from school today because of the holidays, so everything's a little bit more in flux around here. But I would think between 4 and 5. It may be after 5, just depends. But usually between 4 and 5. Amy asked, do I trust the European model more? It has performed better lately than the GFS. That said, I think it's crazy saying we're going to get 2 inches of ice. But like I said, you can only take so much in that regard. What are your recommendations for first responders who have to work this weekend? Oh boy. First off, thanks for what you do. Rebecca asks that. Secondly, the warmth. Stay warm, stay warm, stay warm, stay warm. I know you guys, you got to travel. We'll keep an eye on the precip and see what happens with and how that will impact roads. But obviously, steady as she goes. Take it slow wherever you're going. If the roads become an issue, we're way too early into that spec. But I can't stress enough the cold. We may drop below freezing in a lot of areas, especially across southern Arkansas. You may drop below freezing Friday night, and you may not get above freezing again until Monday afternoon. You may spend the entire weekend below freezing. That is a possibility. So that's the alarm bell I'm sounding right now. Cold. We will deal with everything else as we get there. Again, fishing game comes out later tonight. I'll join you for another live stream in a couple of hours as we just continue to update this scenario. As I mentioned this morning, we will talk about this until it doesn't need to be talked about anymore. Thanks so much for stopping by the Digital Weather Desk, powered by Century Next Bank. Forecast is always available at digitalweatherdesk.com and on the Digital Weather Desk app, available for Apple and Android users. Thanks so much for making time for us in your busy day, and I'll check in with you in a little bit. Enjoy your Monday, everybody.